All right, welcome everybody to Inreflections, part 4. Inreflections is my personal view on things. Having it's like this week in Tyranny, but worse. It's even more brutal. It's even more personal. These are my videos where I put in the stuff that maybe you may not want to sit through if you're just looking to get the news. But anyway, I did this episode about the parking deal with the privatization of taxes having to do with the parking meters, and that they're Chicago pub parking meters, but then the money is taken away into Saudi Arabia or Abu Dhabi. It's ridiculous, but it's just a different type of colonial exploitation. It's really a muddying of the waters. The point is to have a private-public partnership, because that way it is harder to identify the authority structure, the control system, for what it truly is. It is just like the marriage of church and state. It has now just been morphed into state and maybe it is church and state again, because the religion of the world is money. Um, um, that is a different. Maybe that's next week's video. That's a different video altogether. This one is about objective reality and backwards motion. Objective reality. So it just happened that I was listening to a few thinkers, researchers, and thought of this, and the question was asked by Danica Patrick, out of all people: is there even such a thing as objective truth? Is there an objective reality? Now, I know you probably know me from, you're from the natural law circles, the Mark Passio sphere. Obviously, there's such a thing as objective truth and objective reality. Okay, but then when you get into really studying the self and this work about self-creation, autopoiesis, right? A lot of the things I talk about that all have to do with how crucial the human mind is. Again, the first principle of mentalism, right? The human mind being so inseparable from the universe and the things that go on in this universe. Then you go into Carl Jung and synchronicity and all these things, archetypes, and really it gets very interesting. Long story short, though, of course, there is objective reality. And a nice personal definition, a way that I want to define this as of today, 12/21, winter solstice 2024, Merry Christmas. Objective reality, all it is that which has happened, has occurred, and will never change. So we're going to talk about backwards motion. And this is why I want to start with that, and just right there kind of start with like the simplest bare bones definition. The only thing that you can say for sure that is totally objective, it's anything that has occurred in the past. It happened and it'll never change. Now, the future has infinite possibilities. And this is the whole thing about you can go into quantum mechanics, right? This is how the whole Pandora's box was reopened about subjectivity and free will and all these things. And like Immanuel Kant comes back again. How come the electron moves like a wave and a particle? How come there is this uncertainty principle, right? How can there be an objective reality if there's an uncertainty to every little molecule? Well, this is what it is. It's really simple. It's just what has happened is unchangeable, and what hasn't happened, you can never say for sure. So it basically comes down to two statements. One is, it is what it is, and then the other statement is, it doesn't have to be like this. And I alluded in my This Week in Tyranny that I'm going to talk about these 4 different kinds of people based on these 2 different qualities. Where the revolutionaries or non-revolutionaries, and then the capitalist or the socialist. But we're not getting there yet. We're going to talk about, again, the DNA of creation. This is what it comes down to. I want to define this objective reality and the motion of life itself as in terms of timing and when things occurred. There are 4 kinds of people in the world. People who believe that they can't change the past, but can change the future. Right? People who first I'll describe who these people are, then I'll talk about what they believe. So these are the rulers of today, the high level ones, the Satanists, the kings, the obsessed conquerors, the Alexanders of history, all the royalty. The mindset of these people, of psychopaths, is these people don't cry over spilled milk. They don't sugarcoat the past. They don't change the past. They don't do anything. These are the dark occultists, and you can listen to how Mark Passio talks about them. I've never met one of these guys, but this is what it is. They take reality for what it is. They look at what has happened up until the present moment, and they don't fuck around with it. They take it for what it is. And then, as far as the future, they think they can do anything, down to changing natural law and inverting nature on itself. That is how infinite their possibilities are inside of their heads. That's what makes them psychotic, though. They think they can do anything. They can do any kind of sadistic playground or AI, fever dream. And they will take the steps to make it happen. And why are they successful? Because this is actually the correct viewpoint. Unfortunately, this is the correct viewpoint, is that no matter what, you cannot change the past, so you might as well stop living in there. And then you need to approach life like you could do anything, because you basically can. You won't ever invert the laws of nature, which is why this satanic plan is doomed to fail. But at the end of the day, they know that, and whether they do or not, it's irrelevant. The point is, these people think they can do anything, so they do, and we don't. And this is our problem. We need to have this mindset, not being greedy and evil, but definitely having infinite potential, but not being dreamers and looking in the past. Then you have people who believe they cannot change the past correctly, because you can't change the past, but then they also think they can't change the future. So this is like being a nihilist. It's being black-pilled, right? This is an existential worldview, that just the world is what it is and we have no free will or anything. These are the true NPCs. It's not the liberals. These are the NPCs. They're non-participating creatures. They look at life. They at least see the irreversibility of it. They see this is kind of how reality is. But then they think, okay, since that's the way it is, I'm not going to try to do anything, and I'll just be floating in the wind. Small percentage of people, but increasing, unfortunately. Then you have people, now we're getting into people who think they can change the past, or feel like they can, right? They can change the past, but they also are optimists. They think they can change the future. So these are like your new age thinkers. This is the new age view. These are your dreamers. Everything is perception, right? Everything is perception. So the past lives and all this stuff. But then also, you can just meditate and everything, and you can still do anything, okay? They correctly have an optimist. They correctly have a drive, a pull toward potential, an understanding of their own potential, but they don't have an understanding of how potential is realized, because they hold on to this idea that you are somehow more rosy and different from what you actually are. So it is like refusing the chain of causality, and that's what these people are. They're reality refusers. And then you have people that feel like they can change the past, just like the New Agers, but they think they can't change the future. And it just seems the worst. It is wrong on both counts. And unfortunately, this is the unspoken default. Deep down, this is the view held by humanity. We don't think so. No, it's hard to even wrap your mind around that. But deep down, this is how we act. We act like we can't actually change the world, but we want to justify. See, it's all about not changing ourselves, but making excuses for the way we are, justifying what we've done, and convincing ourselves that what happened before is actually okay, when it isn't. Most people are engaged in that. And this is why we are absolutely detested, mocked, and hated by the people that rule over us. Because they look at this and they see it as a weakness. And they're correct in seeing it as a weakness. Because remember, they believe what happened, but God damn it, from now on I can bend the world to my will. And they're looking at somebody who doesn't even accept reality for what it is, and then has no will to exercise at all. They just totally scoff at that. They detest that. And I hope you can see why. It makes sense. See, but I'm not saying like it comes from a good place. Like, we want the world to be beautiful because we come from nature and the Spirit of God. We have a connection to emotion, right? To nurturing and love. So we come from a spirit that is beautiful. So we wish it was beautiful. Obviously, we want it to be beautiful, but the current state, it just isn't. But instead of admitting it and stating that it is not what it is, we instead actually perceive that it is. We don't just lie to ourselves. We actually have a warped perception. It's not just lying to ourselves. Part of it is that we actually perceive the good in the world, inordinately so. All the people that are socialists, that they're socialists because they actually want people to have enough food, they want people to have shelter, they want health care for everybody, right? They want help for everyone. They're not necessarily lying to themselves. They actually see that giving to others is compassionate, and it is the kind of thing that we should be doing, correctly so. But the problem is, because of their perception disability, the only data that they take into themselves, again, last episode was about the trivium, right? This is it. They take in the grammar, and the only grammar that they're able to receive and process in the logic stage is the kind of data that's going to inform a progressive socialist worldview. So that's what makes them that way. And that's what it is to be a liberal or a socialist or a progressive feminist. It's a belief that you can change the past, but not the future. I know it sounds backwards because it's all about progress, right? But really it isn't. It's actually just business as usual, but you want to change the past. So let's talk about that first, changing the past. If you use homeless people as an example, you want to house the homeless, you want the poor to be fed, right? But by forcing businesses to pay taxes, what you're doing is in other words, you're caring about a given outcome, but not the chain of events that creates the outcome. So you're not respecting the laws of nature. Because if anybody is forced to give up money, then it defeats the purpose. And then homelessness will never be solved. As long as it's voluntary, it's going to work. And it could be done. Actually, the only reason it doesn't work is because it's not voluntary. And people will never put enough effort to do something that they're forced to do. And people don't get that, and it's just because they're not seeing the patterns and the sequences of life far enough into the future. And it goes down to the foundation behind the idea that we even have a home to live in and that it's safe. You know, the idea behind it is that no one's going to tear it down, right? Otherwise, nobody would have a house. Nobody would have an apartment because it would be pointless. Anybody could walk in and take it from you. The reason we even have civilization and we live the way that we do is because there's an understanding that what you have is actually going to be there when you wake up in the morning. And if it wasn't for that, then nobody would settle down. And here's the crazy thing. Like, nobody sees that we're in the same boat as the homeless guy. He's responding to the same world as us. You know, that guy in the tent over there, you think you're so much different from him. You have so much more in common with that guy. Because he's just making a different choice, but in the same exact dilemma. He's responding to a world where it's a war just to keep an apartment. Just to make the cost of living in a place like Chicago, and really anywhere at this point, you have to live a certain lifestyle just to keep a roof over your head, just to have a starting base to sustain yourself. And the homeless man looks at that and for whatever reason says, what's the point I'll be fine on my own. And really, freedom is a word you're going to hear a lot when you talk to people who are, they're of a sound mind and are willingly homeless, which I know is most people, they're not of a sound mind. They're sick, they're addicted, they're mentally ill, all these things. I get it, okay? I have compassion. I don't just have compassion and understanding for the people who are not able to stay off the streets. In other words, the people who are injured, disabled. I have compassion and understanding for the people who are able but not willing. I actually respect that. I respect that. And again, if you ask a lot of these people, if you actually could take like some kind of a survey, they're not the ones asking for these handouts. They're not the ones trying to take something from your plate. It's the government that is using them as an excuse. And what they do is neither to their benefit or yours. It's to the detriment of everybody involved because, right, it's one noose for all necks is how it goes, okay? Shout out to Michael Tessarian. But back to what we were saying, instead of respecting the chain of causality, people want to change the past, right? So they want to put the money into where they want it to go, but without making the money, without an idea and understanding of how the wealth was created. There's such a disrespect for people who are rich just because they are, and like you haven't actually lived their life. You don't know how they made their money, but you want to assume that you can spend it better just because you don't have it. And but really my bigger issue is people just cannot envision a world where you don't have to take from somebody and then people can still sustain themselves. They believe in an unchangeable future, specifically, in particular, as it pertains to human behavior, how human beings behave. So they believe that wealth is inherently corrupting, right? And they also believe that just because you happen to be homeless or black, that you cannot take care of yourself for some reason, right? I thought that was the whole like racial justice thing, but I'm seeing a lot of undercurrent of racism in a lot of that, because you're the one who's assuming that just because somebody's comes from a certain culture, a certain background, certain color, that puts them in like a different bracket of like how they go about resources and their ability to have a mental prowess and acumen. I say this all the time. You let you let a black man have a level playing field in any profession, and give him the same background. You see if they're not near the top. But it's all beside the point. The point is people, they think they're so enlightened, they want to help all these people, but they're still operating from the same foundation of, oh, if we don't intervene, people are always going to take from each other. They're always going to steal. They're not going to help, and they're not going to be able to make a living. And you're treating people like children that aren't children. Like that's the thing. I mean, hearing the idea that some people are always going to be poor, and that we always have to have social institutions to help a group of people that can't make it on their own, like some kind of subclass of perpetual children. I don't see this. There is no subclass of perpetual children that constantly need our help. You just need to leave people alone. You need to stop taxing them so much, and give them a shot. Like, leave them alone. Take the programs out of the neighborhoods, and you'll see that people are going to stick together. And then beside all that, let go of all that. No one even considers the simple concept that if we didn't force people to do things they don't want to do, all the way from children going to school and all this stuff, and the taxes especially, maybe if we didn't live in a world where you had to do all these things that you don't deep down want to do, maybe people wouldn't get sick. Maybe people wouldn't get addicted. Maybe they wouldn't form habits. Maybe they wouldn't be schizophrenic, because I think we're living in a schizophrenic world, and that the mind would be healthy if it were living in a healthy environment. Animals in nature don't get sick. They very rarely do, but animals do get sick a lot. The ones that do, they're often living with humans, or they're the domesticated ones. Well, so are we. We've been domesticated. So now let me break down these four types of people, like I said I was going to, and that'll be it. So the whole concept of being a socialist, being a communist, it's like the concept of revolution is intertwined there. The whole like they go together. Like if you're a socialist, you're a revolutionary. Um, this is the type of people that have the motivation to change, but they don't see a reality correctly. So these would be the people that think they can change the past, and they also think they can change the future. A socialist by nature is schizophrenic, or actually, depending on, I have to correct that because it's actually not important here. The point is, being a socialist by nature is schizophrenic or contradictory, at least, because you want the kind of dynamics that you have in a family, like unconditional love, like unearned nurturing, right? Like that's what happens in a family. A newborn baby doesn't have to offer any kind of value to be reimbursed contractually. Like that's crazy, right? Like they're not a self-sufficient person who can offer equal value for a transaction. That would be crazy. When we have a baby, like it's just unconditional love and sacrifice. So socialists, they want a family dynamic while simultaneously cutting out the foundation that makes a family, which is an intimate and personal emotional bond, a very bond that there are no two bonds alike. It's very unique. That's one. And two, in a family, nothing is forced and nothing is mandatory. That's a family. So you want that. You want that, but without, again, the chain of causality to make it so. The world as a whole is not a family whether we want it to be or not. We have freedom of association to build our own families, but we're not a family just because we're human beings. Now, on a deeper level, we are of the same flesh and family, and one day we can be this family where there's no estrangement and we all feel unconditional love for each other. We absolutely can. And you can ask some people who have had transcendental experiences, and they're going to tell you like they feel this love and they don't even care about having their own house or having a car, because they've already experienced it. They already know that the whole universe is a family, and they've been all these people, and they've seen the past and they've seen the future happen at once. Like that's what happens. People have had these experiences, no one listens to them, like my friend Dan Alexander. Now, we as a whole can get to that point if it is what we choose, but we can only do that through progress. And that means this whole species, like a child, maturing and growing into making a free will choice to do something that is better, that is not as basic and cold as capitalism. Okay? And I don't mean to just glorify capitalism, but this is where we're at this point in our development. There are no shortcuts here. You can't mandate compassion, you can't force love. Rugged individualism and selfishness is the way to progress out of this abyss of mutual slavery and dependence, codependence that human beings have found themselves in. We need revolutionary capitalists, but where are those revolutionaries? We need the counterbalance to that, the revolutionary capitalists, but we don't have that. We have non-revolutionary capitalists. So these are your conservatives now. These are people who get what works, because that's the life they've lived. Free enterprise, it just works, right? These are the people that are so quick to talk about common sense. Like, oh, it's just common sense. You don't need to know anything else, right? But they're not willing to take any actions other than voting and talking and posting online. And meanwhile, you have straight up looters and thieves that need stopping. Who's gonna stop them? Not these guys. Because these guys back the blue. They got the fucking blue stripe on their car. And these are supposed to be the real men? Since when? I see a lot of these snowflakes that got bigger balls than these fucking good old boys. You know, we need revolutionary capitalists. We need a return to reality, and fuck the word capitalism. It just means reality. So we need revolutionary realists, and capitalism is just the way things are. Your property is your property. If you earned it, it's yours. If you didn't earn it, it's not yours. That's natural law, right? And again, the whole word capitalism, I know it has it sounds like a dirty word, right? It sounds like a fat white guy and he's smoking a cigar. But the word there is capital. And when we say somebody's name or we talk about property, we use capital letters to say your name, right? Your individual. It's different from all the different letters. It sets itself apart as bigger, right? As being something greater than this. And by the way, it refers to property, right? Like your name. And when you write somebody's name, that's called a proper noun. To do things that are correct, to do things that are good and respectable, we say that's proper behavior. A proper noun always uses a capital letter. Property, capitalism, that's all it is. It has nothing to do with money. It has to do with, do you value your own life or not? I'm starting, these 2 episodes, I'm starting to really rant. Like, I'm going to lose my mind with this stuff because it's too simple. This shit is too easy. And the word revolutionary actually means to return. A revolution is a spinning of the wheel to complete the cycle. So guys, I'm not the rebel here. I'm not the one turning the world upside down. The rebels are the tyrants who have attempted to invert nature and make slavery freedom and turn life into death and to make up into down and black into white. I ain't got shit to do with that. I'm a normal person. I am a normal human being, and I advocate for a return to what works, a revolutionary. I'm not the one turning it upside down. I'm the one turning it back to where it's supposed to be. I'm not a rebel, okay? I'm normal. So I'm going to finish with answering the philosophical question that inspired this whole episode. Is there such a thing as backward motion, backward progress? Right, when we talk about growth versus stagnation. Is there such a thing as a regression, a reversal of maturity? And the answer is no. There is only forward motion in the universe, or there is no motion at all. That is where I'm at today. And I doubt. Look, I've never. Okay, no, I have to take it back. I have changed a few things. Okay, that I said that were a little bit harsh, or things changed, but yeah. Again, it's not to say that I'll always be right, but hey, it's all a matter of record, right? You can go back to any episode of This Week in Tyranny, any video that I have ever done, and you see this journey. Okay, that's kind of the whole point of this channel. I want to put my balls out on the line and speak the truth, and have faith that the record of truth will speak for itself, and people can look back on this. And hopefully more normal people like me can take more normal actions. You know what I mean? So there's either motion or there's no motion at all. I'm about motion. And that's due to the fundamental principle of the universe. Well, one of those fundamental principles of the universe, which is that the future holds infinite possibilities, but the past holds only one. That what has happened will never be reversed. It'll never be changed. If God could be written as an equation, if God or nature could be written as a mathematical equation, here they are. That's one of them. The past cannot be erased. It stands as a record of what happened, and we can have faith in that as like a foundation for life. That should be, that might as well be the 2 stone tablets that Moses brought back from the mountain. Okay, what has happened will never be not that. That's one equation. The other is the eternal equation of natural law, is that you get what you earn. The golden rule is also that, the law of cause and effect, whatever you want to call it, the law of justice. Those are the two. And I didn't even mean to even say this, but as I just said, those two things, those two equations, those are the two trees, right? The tree of life. We talk about the cycle of the chain of causality, right? The way life goes forward, and there's either forward motion or there's stagnation. Just like a function of a graph, there's only one output for every input, right? It doesn't go like this, running into each other like a snake. It's a straight line. That's the tree of life. And then the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? This is your equation of two counterbalances. That you get what you deserve. If you respect other people's property, your property will be respected. If you steal from others, you will be stolen from. You will relinquish your property. Tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now, it is said in the Bible that you cannot eat from those trees. You could take that how you want to, and I don't mean to, I don't mean to say that, I'm knowing the reason for the writing of that in the Bible. I'm just saying that this is something that resonates today, and I happen to be talking about some stuff that is just about the DNA genetic code fabric of reality, and it just happens to check out and correspond with both the Bible and the way human beings behave and the show and everything. That's just how it goes. Because again, we all have this code within us, right? It's a fractal universe, so what happens in the microcosm happens in the macrocosm. Whatever you want to call it. I didn't finish my thought. It is said that you're not to eat from it, which I take to mean you're not to fuck with it. But people want to invert that. They want to, again, change the past. Motherfuckers want to erase the past because they cannot handle reality. They want to weasel their way out of taking responsibility for their actions. Motherfuckers want to erase the past, and people don't want to look justice in the face and say, shit, I ain't getting nothing for free in this world. So those are your two stone tablets. Basically, it comes down to, you could do whatever your heart desires in this world, but you don't get to go backwards. Nobody can go back and tell you to pay some debt greater than what you borrowed. No one can warp that equation and then demand more than you took. So I don't believe in all this paying back with interest, taxes, these percentages. It's bullshit. You give somebody 1%, you've devalued yourself as a human being. It's 50% or it's nothing when it comes to transactions. No one can tell you that you're guilty of something that happened before you were born, like the original sin, right? The satanic lie that is original sin. The same thing as like you having some type of duty to go into the draft and fight for your country. Whose country? What contract did I make with anybody? Now, I'm a romantic Polish patriot. I love everything about that, about that land and everything. But trust me, something happens and I'm gonna see it's the government's war, not mine. You think I'm gonna feel some kind of duty or obligation to defend the same people that are taking from this land? They're the ones who are that the mothers are crying over their children dying for. It's these motherfuckers. I'm gonna fight for their flag. It's not their flag, it's my flag, and I know how to fight for it by being a normal person and a revolutionary today, where it matters, not tomorrow, where you have to fight a bullshit war that you're forced into. And that's all because of this national identity, racial identity, and collective guilt. There is no collective guilt or responsibility. Guilt and responsibility is individual. Furthermore, no one can tell you to pay a percentage on what you earn called a tax. And what that really is going back into time to when that effort was exerted, right? You don't make your money when you get the check. You're making your money when you do the work, right? Ahead of time. And if somebody's telling you owe taxes, it's like they're going back in time into that moment where they were not there, and they inject themselves there and claim that somehow you owe them and that somehow they were there and deserve a piece of the pie. These are all lies, and it's the lie of regression. It's because if you can change the past, then you no longer have a shared reality. You now have two of them. You have two outcomes, and that is not reality. There's only one reality, this one. So my call is join me, and we can take the reality back. I'm appealing to all normal people like me to bring back a normal world. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.